Hello beautiful people, this is Vlad from Synaptic Schism. Today I want to tell you why I moved from Studio One to Reaper. Just to give you a little bit of context, I wrote music in the box for a long time in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Then I stopped writing music altogether for reasons that are not relevant for this discussion. And about 5 years ago, during the start of the pandemic, I restarted writing music, and that's where we are now. When I restarted writing, I tested a number of DAWs, and the one that I stuck with in the beginning was Reaper. The first videos in this channel were with Reaper. Then I moved to Studio One because the workflow was very well integrated. Although I had customized Reaper quite heavily, it still wasn't there, especially with everything that was related with articulation, which is a big thing in the way that I write music. Move forward a number of years, and I started to have some issues with Studio One, and I decided to give Reaper another shot. And I have decided to stick with Reaper. And I want to show you the reasons why. Okay, so let's go to the DAW. So this is my current project. This is the stuff that I'm currently working on. And the first thing that I want to know is the level of customization that is available in Reaper. For instance, if I right click here, I could have this menu with all of these options, but I don't. I only have these, and these are just the things that are just the instruments that I want to quickly have access to. So basically the samplers and the synths, okay? And everything else is preloaded in this big template that I have with a ton of stuff, okay? So this level of customization in the menus is unparalleled. There's nothing even that closely resembles this. Also, the way that we can code and script inside Reaper is unparalleled. So for instance, look at this strings section with these two violins, violas and cello. I'm now going to touch a button on my Nano Control and look at these knobs here. And maybe you are wondering, what is this? Okay, I'll show you. I use a lot of instruments from Audio Imperia. This is Araya, it's their strings collection, and all of their instruments have this thing, which is the sample start. The sample start is really good when you export everything, because if you have the sample start at a minimum, it has a really great sound, but it's awful to write because it introduces in this position a quarter-second delay. So you want to have this without delay when you're writing, and when you're export, you want to have this at minus 250 milliseconds. Okay. Now, the issue with this is obviously that if you have 4, 5, or 10 string instruments, you will have to change manually each one of them. So what I did was I created this little script, and what this script does is when I move, let me just pin this here and pin this here. So when I move the knob on my controller, it changes for all of the instruments. It introduces a negative delay in the instrument, and it changes the respective variable within Kontakt, which means that something that would take me minutes to do on every single project, I can now just code this little thing. It's just marvelous. It's amazing. And this is another one, this gain knob, because I want to have everything as much as in Unity. This is just a GS script that I duplicated from the original ones and changed. It's just fantastic. We can have all of the control directly in here. So all of this customization, the stuff that we are able to do with toolbars, with menus, with scripting and so on, it's unparalleled. And every time that I find something that annoys me a little bit, I can just change it. Now, to be fair, there's a lot of change that we can do with Studio One, but not up to this level. Okay, Studio One is probably number 2 in this, but Reaper is just unrivaled. Now, the second part is how Studio One handles hardware. And if I'm just writing music, this is actually not an issue. The problem is that I'm doing YouTube videos, and the way that everything is captured by Studio One annoys the hell out of me. You need to have a microphone into Studio One, which is then taking resources and so on. Like this, I can just have my normal microphone directly going through my interface into OBS to record my voice, and I just have directly here in this monitor, I just have this restream also sending directly into OBS, which just allows everything to be recorded. I can just go here, keep talking, and you'll hear the music, and there will be no issues with recording my voice and controlling everything from OBS. It's fantastic. I know it's a small thing, but for me, the way that Studio One captures the hardware in that pretty brutal way compared to Reaper allows me to do a lot more stuff. Now, another thing that I want to show you is, if I want a new project, I'm just going to click here. I don't know if you have experience with Studio One, but you open Studio One and then you have to select a template and then it starts, and it's quite slow to start. So I'm just going to open a new project here. It's going to ask me if I want to save this one. I'm going to say that I don't. The moment I press no, start counting the time. That's it. And most of that time you didn't see it because it was in the other screen, but it was removing the previous instruments. It wasn't actually loading this one. So yeah, it's a lot faster. If I have something that I want to work on, it's just here. It's ready to work. And that's how I want it. So this is a big thing for me with Reaper, and it was something that was getting on my nerves with Studio One. Now, another thing that maybe it's not that obvious is that Reaper not only is slightly faster, it slightly consumes less RAM. So just for working, opening a Reaper session with nothing else and opening a Studio One session, there's a RAM difference between the two. And now we'll be doing another video comparing the impact of big templates. So for you to have an idea, this is a pretty big template that I have. This is my full template, and each one of these things might have other instruments inside it. So yeah, it's a large template, and this is a lot faster with the Reaper. It just works better. And with this, the way that I like to work, for instance, I can just right click here and say activate tracks, and this track is just active and ready to go. This takes a lot more time. With Studio One, it's a lot faster. And probably you noticed, related with my first point about customization, this menu is completely new. It just has the stuff that I want to have here, and it works like a charm. Everything is fast. I can have large templates and work in here easily, no fusses. Everything is fast. Everything works really well. And now for the last point. So let's go to full screen again. Now for the last point, and the last point is cost. When I canceled my subscription to Studio One, I got an email offering me a 30% discount on their hybrid thing. Their hybrid subscription, I believe. That's the name. That would make the cost of Studio One per year 126 euros, I believe. I think I'm not mistaken. I think that the cost is 180 and it would be 126 a year. Now, Reaper costed me 4 years ago 60 euro. I'm saying these values from the top of my head, so if I'm slightly mistaken, please disregard that. But these are more or less the same ballpark. And Reaper, this license goes through 2 versions of Reaper. I'm now on the last one, on 7. When Reaper 8 comes out, I will have to purchase another license. And when that happens, if it takes as long as this one, Reaper would have to cost me 540 euros for the cost to be similar to Studio One, because Studio One is on a month-to-month or year-to-year basis, which means that you will definitely be paying that value over the years. While for Reaper, I only need to purchase a license, and that license is going to be with me for at least 4 or 5 years, which is the case for this one. Now, this 60 bucks would need to cost me 540 to be comparable to the Studio One option, which makes Reaper a much cheaper option, but I guess everyone knows that. So these are the motivations for me to go back to Reaper. There were some other tests that I want to record on video, especially regarding the size of how big templates with inactive tracks can be, which can be a bit of a pain with Studio One in my experience, but not at all a pain with Reaper. So I hope that this was helpful and helped explain why I prefer Reaper to Studio One. And until the next video, bye bye.